Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a video that I saw two creators do just a couple days ago, and they both went live on the same day, and I had so much fun watching those videos, so I thought it'd be fun to do one of my own. And it's basically the highest rated books that I've read according to Goodreads. So they're books that I've read, whether I gave them 5 stars or gave them 1 star. These are the highest rated according to Goodreads, like the average rating is the highest. And I think that this is actually kind of a cool idea because I know that I have crapped on some books that have really, really high ratings, and I think it's interesting because I know that I'm not the only person that has like really wanted to read a book because I hear so many good things about a book, and then I see one bad review about a book, and then all of a sudden I don't want to read it anymore because this one person said something about it and I'm like, oh, they didn't like it, and then I don't really want to read it as much anymore. And I feel like you can't always take like one bad review and like think poorly about a book. I know it's really easy to do, I do it all the time, but I think this is a good way to show you guys that I might have not liked a book simply because it's not my taste. And I think that this will be a really cool video to kind of like explore that. And then I also want to do a video opposite, so my lowest rated books according to Goodreads and whether or not I agree with those. So let me know if you guys want to see that video as well, and I'll definitely do that. Okay. Average rating. Oh my gosh, okay. Huh. So the first book is actually really surprising to me that it's #1 highest rated on Goodreads, because I actually didn't like this book that much. And it's Heartstopper Volume 3. So you guys know I read this book series recently, and I loved Heartstopper Volume 1, gave it 5 stars. Loved number 2, gave it 5 stars. And then I read number 3, and I gave it 3 stars. And it's not that that book isn't cute, like it's super adorable, and I can totally understand why people would really like that book. So it doesn't really surprise me, but it does surprise me that it got the highest out of all of them. Like number 1 and number 2 aren't over number 3. Like that surprises me a lot. And the only reason I say that, and the reason I didn't like number 3 as much, is because I felt like it was very pandering in a weird way. Like I kind of felt like the author was really pandering to kids that have all like the teenage struggles, but she wasn't doing it in a way where she was trying to like bring awareness to these issues. She was just putting them in the book to kind of like relate or to kind of like pander to that crowd, but she wasn't doing any of those issues justice. And I remember like one of the characters was kind of struggling with like eating disorder things, but it was like super like skimmed over, and I felt like it like resolved like really weirdly and easily, where it was like, oh, like I feel like eating disorder topics like that are often portrayed that way in media, where it's just like they just like talk to their friend and then they go get an ice cream cone and they're fine. And that's not how eating disorders are, and I hate it when eating disorders and stuff are portrayed that way. I did find myself rolling my eyes a little bit at some of the things, and that's the only reason I gave it 3 stars. But it was still cute. I can still understand why people liked it. It just surprises me that it got higher than Volume 2 or Volume 1, because I feel like those ones were way better. So the next one is Heartstopper Volume 2, which is a 4.61 average rating, and I totally agree with that. Like, really, really good. The next one does not surprise me in any way, shape, or form. This is one of my favorite books of all time, and I will fight for this book and for this series until the day that I die. And it is A Court of Mist and Fury by Baby. Now this book is phenomenal, and I don't care what anybody says, it's a good book. And I believe that this is objectively a really good book. And there's a reason why people that don't like Sarah J Maas really love this book. Like I've heard so many people say like, oh, Sarah J Maas really isn't for me, but I love A Court of Mist and Fury. Or I donated all of my Sarah J Maas books, but I kept A Court of Mist and Fury. And it's because this is good. And I don't care what anybody says, it's good. Like the way she paced this book was phenomenal. It was like the perfect type of hate to love, the perfect type of enemies to lovers. It was like the perfect slow burn speed. The ending was really good because she did really good character development where you really loved the characters, and so like that ending just had so much feeling to it, and I feel like that's what makes this book really good too. It's because you're just biting your fingernails at the end because you're like, no! I just feel like she did a really, really fantastic job. And am I saying that Sarah J Maas is the best author of all time? Definitely not, but she made a work of art with this one, and I will fight for it until the day that I die. And here's the thing, if I see somebody give this book 1 star, I kind of feel like I can't fully trust their reviews, only because I feel like it's clear that we have completely different tastes. So I totally will fight for this book till the day that I die. I think it's really good. And Sarah J Maas hit a home run with this sucker. And Cassian for life. So the next book is a book that I absolutely adore. And this is one that I actually found at Goodwill. And it is called Humans of New York. And this book has a 4.55 rating, so a pretty high rating. And I'm actually surprised that this book is so high, only because it's kind of like a random book. Like, it's not a book that you hear about really that often because it's more of like a coffee table book. But when I saw this in Goodwill, I literally sat on the floor in Goodwill and read this book forever. And I finally was like, Kara, just get off the floor and buy it so you can read the whole thing. Like, obviously you're liking it. And this is like the coolest book. I'm telling you, if you're looking for a good coffee table book, buy this one because it's a coffee table book you're actually going to read. And basically what this is, if you've never heard of this, I think there was a whole blog about this, but it's about this guy who walked around New York and basically just like interviewed random people. And then he took some of the most interesting aspects of their conversation and they put it in the book under their photo. And it's literally so fun to read. And it's one of those books that really makes you realize that, like, you know that quote that says, like, be kind to everyone because you never know what people are going through or something like that, or somebody could be going through something really hard, whatever that quote is, I can't remember. But this is totally that book. Like, it makes you realize that people that are just walking down the street that look like the perfect, you know, mom with the perfect kids, or the perfect girl boss walking down the street on her phone, or you realize that that person could have just lost their mom, or that they're dealing with maybe a mom with dementia, or this person over here like looks like such a happy dad walking his kids down the road, but he may have lost his wife a month ago. This person could have been famous in their younger years. This person could have been an inventor. This person could have been like this. Like, the most interesting stories, and you realize that every single person that you walk by has such a unique story and a unique life, and it's so cool to just read. And it's like, you know this, but you forget it sometimes. And I just think this is an amazing book. It's really inspiring. It's really just a cool read. Highly recommend it. So good. The next one is Heartstopper Volume 1, which is 4.55 average rating. And again, surprised that that got lower than 3. Doesn't make sense to me. So the next book is House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J Maas. Now, this book is a great book. I really enjoyed this book. I gave this actually 5 stars when I first finished it. And what's the average rating on this one? This one is 4.54. And I think the problem with this book, it's a good book, don't get me wrong. This is an amazing book. I think if you're a Sarah J Maas fan, you're gonna like this. But I think the reason this is so highly rated is because the ending of this book is so surprising and so like shocking that the second you close it, you're like, holy crap. And then you click 5 stars because you're so like blown away by the end that you just give it 5 stars like the second you finish it. But I don't think that this book is actually 5 stars. I gave it 4 stars. I gave it 5 stars at first and then I lowered the rating like a week later because I had to be honest with myself and be like, okay, the ending was great. I loved it. I'm like so excited for the next one. But there was definitely some slow spots in it where I'm just kind of like, okay, like, let's get to the point already. Like, she definitely is a winded author. We all know that. She could definitely use some editing. And I wasn't a huge fan of like Hunt and Bryce. And there was just some elements in this novel that kind of just weren't like 5-star elements, if you know what I mean. So I think probably the reason this has 5 stars on Goodreads is because people just read it, they finished it, read that bomb ending, and then just went and clicked 5 stars. And you know, was done with it after that. So, okay, so the next book is Death Note, Volume 2, and I read this book like a couple years ago, and I love Death Note. I think it's such a fun manga. If you've never read a manga before, I definitely recommend Death Note. It's a great place to start, and I loved it. I can't really remember if I loved the first one or the second one more, but Elena's watching the anime right now, and I actually was like, Elena, I don't know if you're gonna like the anime, because I feel like it's a pretty, like, mature concept, and I've heard the anime is really like dialogue heavy and it's really talky, but Elena really likes it and she thinks it's really good. So I personally love Death Note. I think it's great. I just can't remember like what one I liked the most, but it's a great manga. So the next one is Crescent City by Sarah J Maas, or House of Earth and Blood. I understand why Sarah J Maas's novels always get ranked really high because she has such a huge fan base that are like really obsessive, right? She has like a very strong fan base. So it doesn't surprise me that her books get rated so highly. But again, this book it was good. Like, I really liked this book. I love the reading process of it, but it was so info dumpy, and the beginning of this book was extremely, extremely slow. What I can say is the end was phenomenal. I love Sarah J. Maas's endings. She always has such strong endings to her books, but she always struggles with the beginnings, I feel like. And I don't feel like I'm the only one that thinks that. So there's a lot of times where I finish books by her, and I'm like, oh, this is 5 stars. But I have to remember how I felt at the very, very beginning of her books. And a lot of times it's really easy to forget once you finish her really good endings. So this is another one where I feel like the ending really like skyrocketed those like reviews, but I can definitely say that this book is extremely info dumpy and it's a little bit slow at the beginning, but I feel like it's worth it though. Like, I feel like it's one of those books that even though there's some tough parts to read through, it's still really good. And you guys know I have horrible attention issues, so it's hard for me to like get through long books anyways, but I feel like once I hit like this halfway point in Sarah J. Maas's books, like, I'm done for, and they're really easy to read. Okay, so this next one is super, super, super weird to me, and I have no idea how this is the case. Like, it just is so weird to me. This is one of the books that I really don't agree with whatsoever, but this book has a 4.8 average rating, and I gave it a 2 stars. And I don't understand why this book is rated so high. It's so confusing to me. But it is Obsidio, which is the 3rd book in the Illuminae trilogy. So this was my least favorite book out of the trilogy. I loved Illuminae. In my opinion, that's the best book out of the trilogy, and that one should be number 1. And then Gemina, I liked that one as well. Not as much as Illuminae, but I did like that one. And then this one I hated. I hated this book. I thought it was so boring. And with Illuminae, you were kind of dealing with the first, you know, 2 characters, right? That couple. Gemini, you were dealing with another couple, so it was mostly those 2 characters. In this book, you kind of put all 3 couples from this book and then the first 2 books together. And the one most noticeable thing about this book is the characters are all so painfully the same that it's irritating to read. Like, you feel like you're reading the same 6 characters and they have no individual personality types from each other. They're all the same character. And I feel like not a lot happened in this book. I feel like a majority of this book was them prepping and preparing for like this big scene at the end. And really not a lot happened throughout this story. And I just wasn't into it. I thought it was pretty boring, uneventful, and I don't know why this book is the highest rated in the entire series. It confuses the heck out of me. It's the one book that I feel like I have like the highest like element of disagreement with. Okay, so the next book is one that I also totally agree with, and it doesn't surprise me that this is so high. This is 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and this is a 4.48 average rating. This is a fantastic book. I'm not going to go too deep into this book, but it's so well done, and I feel like Taylor Jenkins Reid, like, I feel like this could be like a modern classic if I'm being honest. The way that she tells this story and takes on really unique topics in such a really creative way. Like, you can't read this and not have like this really strong connection with Evelyn Hugo, and it's just such a powerful story. And I can't explain it. You have to read it. And I feel like you can't really go too deep into what the story is about because it kind of gives spoilers, but you just have to read it. 5 stars, one of my favorite books of all time, hands down. So the next book on the list is Death Note Volume 1, which has a 4.46 average rating. Again, totally agree, Death Note is fantastic. The next book is actually quite surprising to me that this one is so high on the list, but it's Good Morning Monster. A therapist shares her 5 heroic stories of recovery or whatever. And this book I loved. This is one of my favorite books of last year. I absolutely adored this story. I gave it 5 stars. And it's basically a therapist that is just telling you about 5 of her past clients and kind of their story and how difficult their trauma was and how they recovered from their emotional and mental trauma. And it is one of the best books ever. I absolutely love this book. I listened to it on audio, and I feel like that's the best way to read it. It's on audio. And it's just such a powerful story. Like, it was really inspiring and it's really motivating. Like, you kind of feel like you can like look at your life through completely different glasses. I don't know, man. And it just kind of puts a lot of things into perspective, I would say. It puts your life into perspective. It puts other people's lives into perspective. I think it gives you some more empathy because I think it puts you in shoes that you would never be in otherwise. And I think that this book did a great job with that, and that's why I really, really liked it. So, great book, highly recommend, and definitely deserves a high rating. A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So this book, I liked these books, but I also didn't like them. Jennifer L. Armentrout is definitely very Sarah J. Maasy in a lot of ways, but I feel like one level down. I feel like she tried really hard with these books to kind of write a Sarah J. Maas, you know, book series, right? Which totally appreciate, and in a way I really did like these books. But there was so much exposition, there was so much like inner monologue and all of that kind of stuff in this book that just went on and on and on and on and on and on. Info dumpy, but like not in a good way. And I got bored, I'm not gonna lie, in these books a lot. There was definitely good scenes and there was definitely really exciting scenes, but there was definitely scenes where I'm just like, oh my god, like get to the flippin' point already, like I can't handle this. And I was actually watching some TikToks the other day about how you're supposed to pronounce the words in these books, like the names and the places, and I was literally laughing out loud at how obnoxious some of the spellings were for these words. Like Balfour, B-A-L-F-O-U-R, is supposed to be pronounced Bellfloor. Bellfloor? Where's that L coming from? Like, and I'm not kidding, every single one of the words that you were supposed to pronounce a certain way was not even remotely how it was spelled. And I'm like, you can't do this. Like, come on, we're trying to read your novel. Like, at least spell it phonetically. But then she also has a Malik and a Malik. She has like a bunch of different characters that have like the same names. And I'm like, why would you do that? Why would you have like a ton, and it's not just like one or two, it's like a lot of characters that have the same name pretty much, just like slightly different spellings, and you're like, is that just lazy writing? I don't know. So there's a lot of things about these books that kind of irked me, and I ended up not continuing on with this series, to be honest. I gave this book 4 stars because I think I liked it a lot at the time, but I didn't like it enough to continue with it. So I don't know if I could lower these books to 3 stars. I don't know. And I've also heard the 3rd book is the most boring out of all of them. So I think that's part of the reason why I didn't want to continue, is because I knew the 3rd book was the most boring. And if I struggled through the 2nd, then I knew the 3rd probably just wouldn't be for me. So I just gave up after that. So the next book is Gemina, which is Illuminae, the 2nd book from the Illuminae trilogy. Again, really like that book, gave it 4 stars. The average rating is 4.5. So the next book is Muse of Nightmares, actually, and this book was the average rating of 4.44. I gave this book 4 stars. Now, I love the Strange the Dreamer duology. It is one of the most beautiful works of art I've ever read in my entire life, and I love these because of what they are. But they are really long and they do kind of get a little slow, especially this one. And I feel like it's kind of weird that this one is higher rated than Strange the Dreamer, which is the 1st book, because I like Strange the Dreamer more than this one. And the only reason I say that is because this book actually takes place in like a very short span of time. I kind of felt like it was dragging. And I remember, even though I was liking it, by the end I was kind of like, okay, like when is this going to be over? Like I feel like it can like kind of wrap up now, and it just kind of kept going and going and going and going, and that's why I took off 1 star. Even though I say these things sometimes, it doesn't mean that it makes the books horrible or that I was like hating them or anything like that, but it is enough of something for me to take a star away, and I did with this book. But then I gave Strange the Dreamer 5 because I felt like Strange the Dreamer, there was just more going on. Okay, let's just do one more. I feel like I've been talking for a while. Okay, so the next book is A Court of Rings and Ruin, and it actually surprises me, again, that this is rated so high. I gave this 4 stars. This one is 4.43. Now, I really love this series. It's one of my favorite series of all time. I love ACOTAR in general, but I feel like this book, the beginning of this book drove me absolutely insane. Like, when you finish up with A Court of Mist and Fury, like you just want more recent Feyre, right? Like you want that again. You want to just like jump into their whole thing again. But with this book, you have to wait so long for them to get back together because she like goes to another court or whatever, and I'm just like, oh my god, like I just want them to be back together. It's painfully annoying at times at the beginning of this book, and I just was like trying to read it really fast so I could get to the, you know, recent Feyre parts again. Don't get me wrong, when they finally like see each other again for the first time, it's like, oh, you know, it's like worth the wait, but still, like I feel like it was frustrating me, and I kind of feel like the beginning of this book was really, really slow. Like this book is hella long. I feel like it looks short. It actually looks like the shortest book out of the series, but the reason it looks so freaking short is because they use like Bible pages for this one to make it look shorter. But this book is so gosh darn long, and I felt like I was like, why is this book going on for so long? Like there was definitely parts in this book where I thought it was boring. But again, loved the ending like I always do, but I do feel like out of the entire A Court of Thorns and Roses series, this was my least favorite. So it surprises me that it's second as far as like highest rated. What do you guys think? How would you guys rate the ACOTAR books, like in order? I'd probably say A Court of Mist and Fury, A Court of Silver Flames, A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Wings and Ruin, and then A Court of Frost and Starlight. I think that would be my order. So anyways, that is it. I could literally continue on with this forever if I wanted to, but I don't want to like bore you guys, but let me know if you guys want to see the opposite. So my lowest rated books and whether I agreed or disagreed with them. I think that would be really interesting as well. So let me know, and I will see you guys in my next video.